Are we on? Are we on? Are we on?
Yeah.
Oh, good, good. Okay.
Well, in Switzerland at least, was Crime of the Century. Do you have an explanation for that? I mean,
Yes.
Good record.
No, it's me. It's me, because I joined.
Exactly.
what's the purpose of bringing, let's say, specially oriented saxophone musician?
Well, I mean, I've always liked saxophones. John, in fact, took over from a guy called David Winthrop, who played sax as well. I think it's just the idea of giving more colour in music, you know, especially if you play clarinet and flute, saxophones. The more colour we can get, the more we like it.
And who writes and who composes the music in the band?
Well, it's Roger Hodgson and myself are the main composers. We write just about everything.
Are you testing new numbers on stage before they're released?
Our sound man really takes a lot of notice of what happens in the studio, because he's got a lot of equipment to try and get as close to a studio sound as he can. You know, that's why it makes it difficult to do new numbers, because until we finish recording them, we don't really know the entire arrangement. And the same for the lighting system. All the lights are synchronized in with the music, so it's difficult to just do a new song, and they won't know what's happening.
Right, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Okay.
Okay, I hope to see you back in Switzerland.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be back.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
Worrying, that takes most of my time.
Do you worry a lot?
Professional worrier.
Rick Davis, co-founder, plays keyboards. He's 35, English, and writes and sings half the song. For Rick Davis, whose wife Sue runs the band's fan club and souvenir sales, the problem now is to build on success without sacrificing the give-and-take spirit that led the others to go along with his feelings on the Halifax cancellation.
I don't think the group can go on making this kind of a giant tour. I don't think it's good for you. For your brain or your body. The question is to be able to work out how to keep everybody happy. Well, myself and Roger are writing. And
How about the music? Has it reached the target that you want? Is there?
Well, I don't. You're never really satisfied with what you're doing from the inside, you know. I think we can do better.
Will do better?
Yeah, I think we can do better. We'll do better. If we can manage to plot the right course for the future. If somebody's paying $10 or so to see a show, they should, see a good show if we can do it.
I came over from Switzerland to England, put some ads in the papers, and that's really where I met Roger. I came out of a band in 1969. The band was called The Joint. It was run by a guy called Sam, who was our manager. The band didn't make it. He wanted me to start another one. We'd had 2 albums before with other configurations of musicians that didn't happen, certainly on a commercial level. I think with Crime of the Century we went for the more dramatic approach, and it seemed to suit the character of the band. We finally had some success in England, and obviously the next step was to try and conquer America. And with our show we had to really get out there and stay over there and headline. It's been said that there's a certain amount of friction. I think that's inevitable when you're involved in a creative process. I mean, it's like 2 people who are painting a picture on the same canvas, and somebody wants to put a red there and somebody wants to put a blue. You have problems because the picture doesn't get finished, type of thing. In the past, we've always been able to work around it, and I think as we've progressed, it's got more and more difficult to, come to decisions artistically.
In 1984, Rick, Doogie, John, and Bob went into the studio without Roger for the first time to record Brother, Where You Bound.
I knew I had material. I didn't know how strong it was going to be with just the four guys. And, after some thought, it was... Obviously, we came to the conclusion that it was... the strongest thing to do would be to continue as Supertramp rather than all scatter, and I would do my album and Roger would do his album, and then it would be, big competition between individuals and all that, which I'm not a big fan of.
The album's title track was accompanied by a 20-minute film directed by René Dolder, which was premiered by the band in Venice, Italy.
It was one of those things where he'd spent all his money in the first shot, very, very ambitious war room and all that, and then the rest was kind of close-ups of people. And I just remember trying to dig a hole in the ground as to try and get out of there, but of course it was water everywhere around, so I couldn't. And then I remember the boss of A&M over there, Russ Curry, he goes up to the front, and it was at the end of it there was dead silence, but and he goes up to the podium at the end and he looks out to the crowd and he says, crowd of journalists, and he said, well, it's given us all something to think about.
Leader Rick Davies told us it was a big step for the band to go out on tour so soon without Hodgson.
But we had a bit of a sort of catch-22, because if we didn't go out, it would be, 3 or 4 years without touring, and if you don't tour as a band, if you don't play, it's kind of like death, you're not a real band anymore. So we kind of gritted our teeth and got out there, and we're really glad that we did. Personally, it was really just a question of getting on with it, I think. Once the decision was made to carry on as the four-piece, no sense in sitting around worrying if it was going to work or not. I think we had pretty good confidence that we had the songs there to make a good album, and we really got into making it. And
the next album, called Brother, Where You Bound, kept the band front and center and even pushed it beyond its former status. Its current tour is a success, and the band is a success.
It'll go on as long as it's healthy. Right now, I think we're going through a healthy stage, and it feels good to get out and work, and we really feel like we're doing something. And we've been actually going through the set quite a few times in Los Angeles. We've never actually done that before in rehearsal. We've always been too fatigued to actually get through a set. Usually takes the audience to get us through the first time. He's got a voice which is distinct, and very individual, so it kind of, he was really the turning point that we decided to tour, because he kind of covered those Roger parts.
The single that we chose from Brother was Cannonball. It was a moderate hit in America and quite a big hit in Europe. Surprised a lot of people because it had that real discotheque dance thump to it. It's something I like, actually, in that particular piece, because it's you can play G all the way through it. I always wanted to try and see how long I could keep one kind of note going through something, and that's about 8 minutes of you can actually play G through it. The second single we had off of Brother was a song called Better Days, and that was a kind of poke at the elections which were going on at that time. And in fact, if you listen carefully, you can hear George Bush and Ronald and who was the other one? They've all, how quickly they fade, the Democrats. And we kind of slipped them into a solo by John at the end, and they're just saying things like it's going to be all better days and everything's going to be great. It's the problem of, okay, we did Brother, now what do we do? Trying to make them different each time. And what we did really was to make an album that I suppose, to coin a cliche, would be to take us into the 80s as it was.
In 1987, Supertramp released their next album, Free as a Bird.
We were working basically separately, building up tracks from rhythm tracks and then bringing in Bob to put the drums on in that way. That made it very different. It made it not always a good thing if you're a band, because it means that people come in from day to day and they don't actually see each other. So, you know, then the bass player comes in and does his bit, and then the drummer. So what you gain in quality, you lose in interaction of the band. I've learned, I think that's not a good thing. So I'm glad I did it that way, just for the experience, but I wouldn't do it again. The first single off of Free as a Bird was a tune called I'm Begging You, and again a very dancey type of thing that we felt, I suppose you could say, was what the market needed or whatever. Maybe that was a mistake to think, you know, we shouldn't go with trends. We never really did in the past, but anyway we did. It was very sort of dance oriented, and we had a dance mix done by I forget what their names are, the disco guys, Aitken and Waterman or whatever. And it became a #1 dance mix in America, which completely blew some people's minds.
The video for I'm Begging You was directed by Zbigniew Rutczynski.
The video was a true video done in absolutely professional circumstances. We were there, I think, for about 48 solid hours, sleeping on the premises, waiting for him to call us to come and walk 3 steps and all this sort of thing. And he just, I don't know, he stayed up all night. I must have drank about 19 cups of coffee, and he just never stopped.
About the life we share.
The second single, Free as a Bird, was a song that's been around a long time. That goes way back. I think it's almost as old as Crime of the Century. And never could quite find the right way to arrange it, you know, with bass drums and how many verses, choruses, etc. And I finally came up with something that I thought worked. I thought it would be nice to try and get something on tape. This wasn't really for release, actually. It was just to try and get something for our own archives. And so they started to record on a 2-track machine. No messing at all. This was strictly onto tape. And we listened to them, and we thought maybe, you know, some of the fans would like to have it. And it was released really with hardly any advertising or any big hoopla, and it was just kind of slipped out there. And you know, it did fairly well. It sold a few 100,000, even as it is.
There was a new twist to the Free as a Bird tour and Live 88 album. For the first time, the band performed material that they had not written.
We broke the mold as far as not having any original material, and goes back to the roots. It was we got into the habit of on the road of playing after hours. We'd go down a club and sort of steal the band's equipment and just go and play some rhythm and blues, which was a lot of fun. If you had the energy, that is. And you know, we got quite into this after a while. You'd make up little arrangements, and in the end we used to do them on stage. And at the end of the Free as a Bird tour, we started taping some of the shows. And of course we had the rhythm and blues thing right at the end as well. And all ended up on the live album, Live 88.
After performing around the globe to millions of fans and releasing 13 memorable albums, that completes the story so far. But what does the future hold for Supertramp?
You know, we're all kind of hovering around and wondering when we may get the urge to do it all again. There's been many attempts to get us back together, and so far it hasn't quite felt right, but I'm sure one day it will. We're all in the studio together for this, which is unusual these days. It's usually done more
technically than that. So, but we feel that's the nicest way to go because you get more atmosphere from actually playing music together.
I think you have to wake up every day and thank your lucky stars that you do something that you like doing. I still have a love of the music and get excited about it. And enough people are into it to make, we can make a living out of it. And I'm very humble about that. I mean, I find it quite funny when you see rock people throwing tantrums, and I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We live a life of privilege. Should never forget it, really.
Tonight is a concert for what? To feel, how do you feel back on the stage?
Well,
after
since
2 years?
I got sick
Yeah,
3 years
we know,
ago,
we know,
and
we know.
so I couldn't play. I had to cancel the tour. We were going to do a tour in Europe, and couldn't play it. And then for a year I was pretty out of it. I couldn't do much, and I couldn't even sit at the keyboard for more than half a minute.
But you want.
But then of course. Then afterwards, I started to get a little better. I started playing in the studio downstairs, and I knew Dave, the drummer, and Mike, bass.
Yeah.
And they would come over and play with me, which was very uplifting and helped me a lot. And then eventually we started to work up a little program, rhythm, blues, and build a band. And then recently I was introduced to G.E. Smith, the guitar, and Scott Chrysler, I think his name is, Chrysler, who filled out the band. So we have a nice little rhythm and blues band now, And we're doing a couple of Supertramp numbers just for, somebody who may want to hear a couple of things, and that's all.
What else would you like? Is that it?
Okay.
Anybody else like to say something?
It's been Groot.
It's been Rick,
Really
yes.
Groot.
Really
Yes,
Groot.
really
Yes,
Groot, really Groot.
Yes. Had a wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we off now? Yes?
No.